So I read a lot of historical romance. It's honestly one of my favorite genres, always has been. And I run the gamut, you know. I love Georgette Heyer, but I also love a good bodice ripper. And as far as I can remember, every so often we have these big conversations about historical authenticity. A lot of these discussions really come down to the names of characters. Even today, if you go to Goodreads or Amazon and you look at the reviews, there'll always be at least one review in which the person says, oh, you know, I had a really good time, I love this book. The only thing was the name of the female lead. I'm really sad that she was called Tiffany or whatever, and it really took me out of the book because I can't read a book that's set in 1817 with a lead character called Tiffany. And I've also seen responses by authors who are like, I'm really tired of people coming up to me and telling me these things because I do my research. And I'm talking about the better authors, you know. I think Courtney Milan or somebody similar whom I respect a great deal once said they really did do their research and they really were women back in the 19th, 18th, 17th centuries with quote-unquote modern names, but because they were consistently getting these reviews about how the names were too modern, the reading experience suffered and therefore they were being downrated. And those reviews are important, and that's why most of the female leads you'll see in historical romance are called Persephone or Athena or Hero or names like that. Something very classically Greek for preference. Or maybe just a plain Mary, never goes out of style. But historical authenticity talks about a lot of other things as well. One of which is that historical romance is obviously set in olden days. And if you think women have it hard these days, boy, you should look at how women lived in the past. It was grim. I mean, we're not even talking about the whole underwear situation. We're talking about the laws. We're talking about living conditions, diet, rights, the ability to vote. Didn't have any of those things, you guys. And that's why a lot of authors write exclusively about rich women. But here's the thing, if you are looking at authenticity, then the lives of rich women might have been a bit more comfortable, but it's not like they were orders of magnitude better than the lives of their poorer sisters. If you were a rich woman, you were basically chattel. You had value for your bloodline. You had arranged marriages and you had dowries, and these were valuable things. And this is as true in England or in Britain as it was, say, in India or elsewhere. This whole marrying for love business, that's a pretty recent thing to be standardized or normalized. So now you see the conundrum. If you are writing about women for an audience that is mostly women or a majority of women, it kind of ruins the vibe if you are writing books about how life was basically sucky and horrible for your female lead. You want to strike a balance where you're like, yes, life was sucky and bad, but hey, not for my heroine. She's gonna fall in love with a handsome duke. You can actually go online to see the collections of most museums in Britain, or a number of museums in Britain at least, and you should take a look at the portraits of the actual dukes. Beautiful and virile are not words that I would commonly use to describe them. But hey, that's where the fantasy part comes in, right? Romances are fantasy. About 90% of the stuff that you read in a romance are things that are never gonna happen in real life. No man's gonna stick his dick in you and then suddenly you're going to have an orgasm. Like, that's not how sex works. I don't care how steamy it is on page, really not how things work. But we want the fantasy. So one innovative solution has been for authors to basically take modern morality and sort of employ that in their books. So you'll have a woman who was born and raised in, say, Regency, England, and she is looking at a ball for debutantes and she's like, oh my God, this is a meat market. I feel devalued as a human being. Whereas in real life, most women needed to get married because they couldn't own any property, they couldn't hold a job. I mean, unless you were really poor and then you had to do for yourselves, and then you were basically flirting with destitution and death at any given moment. Or did you just fall down and snap your ankle? Congratulations, in 2 weeks you'll be dead. If you don't fall victim to medical malpractice, then you don't have any savings and there's no social net. So you're either going to the poorhouse or else you're dying. Which is why it was seen as such a terrible thing for young women of genteel birth to become governesses. It was a way for them to support themselves, but only if they couldn't catch a husband. This is how the patriarchy functions, you guys. And so you have a bunch of primarily American authors who write these novels in which the female lead is basically a unicorn and she has these ideas that are very different from the rest of her sisterhood. So all the other women in the novel basically can't wait to get married to some nice man and live off his estate, whereas she is the person who's like, no, this is wrong. Women have rights. No, they don't. Welcome to the historical romance. Now, these books are written for a very particular audience. It's an audience that doesn't want authenticity as much. It just wants to see sassy women in pretty dresses. They just want the cosplay experience, really. But it's equally true that this really pisses off another section of the audience that does want greater authenticity. But honestly, what does authenticity mean in a genre where every woman is falling for a duke and nothing less? There's just an abundance of dukes and all of them are young and virile. There's even a little demarcation, within the UK. You have the Scots who are the size of small mountains and have enormous dicks. Also, look, do you think I want to talk about dicks in every video? No, I don't. But this is a symptom, not the disease. Take it up with all the people that are writing modern literature exclusively for the phallic discourse. Anyway, the Scots, they're enormous. When I actually made it to Scotland, I was kind of looking around because I was like, wait, where are all the giant Scots? I've never been more disappointed to see actual human-sized people. There's also this weird ethno-nationalism where only the Highland Scots are the actual Scots or the real Scots, and then if you're the Low Country Scots, then somehow you're basically English. If any of you are Scots, then I would really appreciate your telling me how true this is in Scotland and for real Scottish people, because a lot of these books, pretty much every book that I've read, have been written by American authors, and it's something that I've always wondered. Then you have the Welsh who really never show up. It's always a place where, the male lead needs to escape from London because he's been horribly disfigured or something. He's basically Sebastian from Beauty and the Beast, and he needs to get away, and he goes to this picturesque castle that's half in ruins. It's always half in ruins in Wales. And then he hides out there until the heroine goes and rescues him. And he basically looks like Richard Burton, but with a tasteful facial disfigurement. And then you have Cornishmen who live in elaborate mansions that are haunted by the shades of their unquiet wives, and they never have titles for some reason. And of course you have the English who are sex bunnies living in very picturesque mansions and castles that are basically rehashed versions of the mansion from Pride and Prejudice. That's fine by me. The only one that I don't really read are the Irish ones, mainly because all the Irish heroes have the second sight or traveler blood or something. There's always like a Romani great-grandmother and frequently they use the G word to describe her. And the Irish ones honestly make me a little bit uneasy just because I see a lot of parallels between the way people write about Ireland versus how they write about India. And when you are talking about the aristocracy in Ireland, you're basically talking about people who are collaborating with the crown. If you're Irish, let me know what you think about that. Am I just projecting too much? But also, I just don't really appreciate the whole second sight thing. I don't have anything against paranormal romance. It's just not my druthers. So really what I'm saying is that it really comes down to why you're reading these books. Are you looking for a bit of escapism, or are you looking for something that's more reality focused? Are you just looking for erotica with a bit more plot? I mean, each of these are valid things. Sometimes I want something that is more sexy, whereas sometimes I want something that's more real. And if I want historical authenticity, then I'll pick up a piece of non-fiction or a book of historical narrative fiction. There are several excellent authors who have specialized in writing very true-to-life historical narrative fiction, and I've spoken about quite a few of them on this channel too, if you're interested. But in the end, I personally feel that it's a little bit misplaced to pick up a piece of historical romance and then sort of examine it with the same fervor and the same rigor that you would bring to a piece of scholarly research. Which is not to say that I give a pass to bad writing. Bad writing is bad writing. I'll call it out anytime I see it. And the things that do bother me, like the trope of the one sassy female lead who understands, unlike everybody else in the novel, exactly where she's situated in the 19th century within a patriarchal context. Yes, that annoys me, and those are the kind of authors that I would probably never read again. But if you're an author and you write a really banging historical romance about a girl called Tiffany in Regency England, I'll read it. I guess you just need to be able to sell me on whatever it is that you are writing. So the test for historical authenticity really just boils down to a question of writing talent. For more videos, please hit the subscribe button.